Hey everyone, what's up? I'm Andy,
I'm Jen.
and today I'm actually going to interview Jen and talk to her about a couple things that I think are worthy of asking and talking about. And we're going to start this kind of exchange and also then have some other, I'll say, like semi-hosted kind of talks and conversations just about like life stuff, parenting, relationships, faith, family, work, creativity, all that kind of stuff. So today we're just going to kick that off by kind of doing a little mock interview. So, hey, you've never done this before with me, so are you ready? Kind of, maybe not. All right.
Okay, you just need to know
So-
there are two versions of Andy. There's the Andy here, and there's the Andy with me. And so this is a very strange.
You're going to see both of them right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so for everyone who does not know you, like talk about where you were raised, like what was your upbringing like? What was childhood like for you? And this is back in the '80s, back when we were kids. Now, so we're the old people in the room in most rooms nowadays. But tell me, what was childhood like and being raised and grown up?
I don't know. I mean, childhood was. We were raised in Chula Vista. I have two sisters. You know this. We just did family a lot. Like family was huge. My cousins and my sisters and my aunts and uncles and my parents, we were just together a lot. And there was a lot of laughter. There was a lot of fun. Every family has their own version of turmoil, but it was just a lot of family, a lot of fun, a lot of community. But we were not necessarily churched, if you will. And I think for me growing up, because of that, family was my church. And, we played a lot. We camped a lot. We had parties a lot. And, yeah, family was huge.
What are some of your fondest memories of your childhood? Because you mentioned a couple things like family. So I know what you're talking about are the family gatherings at your nana's house on the weekends. with the music and the dancing. So talk more about that, because you spent a lot of time with your extended family, probably more than most people do or ever have. I mean, just from the people around us, and we hear them talk about their childhood or whatever. It's not the same. And now I know. Culturally, some of that is just this way because of the way Chula Vista is, right, and the way so many families have kind of stayed that were either immigrated here or found themselves here, stayed here. But what are some of your fondest memories? You mentioned camping and playing and all that kind of stuff, but like what kind of stuff really stands out to you from that period of life?
So we had a lot of time with at my nana's house. It was music and food and laughter and play, just a lot of that stuff. Every weekend, it seemed like we were at my nana's house, and it was her house or our house, and it was just play. We swam a lot. We camped a lot. Those are my fondest memories because, one, I didn't have to do the work.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, seriously, you see things as
because you're a kid and you're like, hey, I'm here and I'm doing the fun part. I didn't have to do the prep and all that.
Yes.
Yeah, I get it.
I didn't have to do the prep. I didn't have to do the packing. I didn't have to do the cleaning. I mean, obviously we helped our parents with whatever, but I really look at the food and the music and the just camaraderie of family. We, born in Chula Vista, it's a highly Hispanic community, and our family on my dad's side is that, and it was just always togetherness. And maybe cool, that's the culture, but I think there was something special to the fact that our family is just uniquely that way as well. And if somebody's in the hospital, everybody and their mother is there, just because that's what you do. So that's all I've ever known. And to me, that's why it was really important to raise our girls that way. You jump when someone needs you, and you don't ask questions. You just go in and you aid however. And that's what our family has always done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what is What's the origin of the music? I know everyone like loved music, but you actually have a very talented musical family, and everyone that knows you already knows that you sing beautifully and at a very high level. But a lot of people who may not know you or whatever, they don't know that you come from a line of people who can really sing, and then of course that came to you, and then you've passed that. You, not us. You've passed that to our daughters.
We're musical. He drums, I sing. My nana, and I don't know how far this goes down her line. She has always sang. She's always sang in church. She had a beautiful voice. My dad talks about how beautiful her voice was. I don't know. We called my grandfather Kunka. I don't know if he had any musical ability, but he was a boxer. So my dad sang, but when my dad was young, that wasn't promoted. It was, you're an athlete and you stay in your lane. And I don't know how much of that was family driven versus that nature of their culture at the time within the schools that they went to, or just that time.
You mean like peer pressure kind of
peer
thing?
Pressure,
Like,
whether
hey,
it
you're
was
the
cool or
quarterback, throw the
not.
ball, don't sing about it.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Which all the uncles were, and my dad, they're great athletes.
Yeah.
But he has this insane voice, or he always has, and he's never done anything with it. But my sisters and I really, really dove after that as well. But there's always just been this love of music history, and my dad would take us through any song that came on, in all sorts of genres, just constantly teaching us who's who and why this was important and where this shifted the history of music. And to me, that's always been something I've gravitated towards, because I think music history is tremendously important in cultural history, like how we move as a culture and why we move as a culture. You can see how rebellion started within music. You can see how there was an invitation to the we or the I in music, and so that was always a huge part of our family as well. And it was always just for the sake of making the atmosphere lively and fun, and I find myself doing that in our house as well. It's just been all I've ever known. And so we play, the same games with our kids.
Yeah.
I in the car, who's this? And if they don't know the answer, they get busted just for fun.
So they don't know the answer. Wow.
They should. They've been raised on it.
Again, some people are going to know this and some people don't. But when you were in high school, you were always a very good singer. But you had an opportunity to actually take singing into the actual industry of the singing and be sent. Essentially, my version of this is sent away to go do music somewhere else and sing and be elevated into that. But you didn't choose that. What was behind that?
That was strictly, so we did the show choir thing, and we did I was invited into big band stuff at 18, and then 19 and 20 hit, and I was invited into, actually no, it was 20 and 21. I was invited into the recording industry, and just so happened, and I say just so happened, that's honestly my life. Like, when you think of, you're looking through your rear view mirror, mine has always had Holy Spirit directing and moving me all my life, and I never noticed it until I was probably 30. I was invited into these recording atmospheres where Sony Europe, there were people that I was working with at the time that Sony in Europe, they wanted to bring my music to just to create something with me, but there was always this knowing in my spirit that I was not supposed to enter that arena, because it would have been devastating to where the Lord actually wanted me to, and I didn't know at the time that's what it really was, but I just knew. So, a little bit of a backstory to that is our family line has always had a prophetic calling on it. My dad functions in it, my mom functions in it, but not one of us, because we weren't churched people and there was no coaching and that, we didn't know that's what it was. We just knew things. We knew when something was that was gonna be good, or that was gonna be bad, or we should go which way or the other. We just knew. And I knew with every ounce of my being, I wasn't supposed to say yes to this invitation. However, I also knew that I really, really love the recording world. And I stayed in that vein of it for other songwriters. And also, we were able to take that to Nashville later on down the road when the kids were born. I just knew when I was a kid it wasn't something for me. And then, of course, you know this, but you don't. The revealing of the why we weren't supposed to take that route only came when we were in our 30s, because the Lord had other things that he was building in and through our family. And now I know that what he was actually trying to shape me in and grow me in and mature me in regards to the gifting on my voice, it wasn't for the sake of me just experiencing the music industry more than it was for me understanding what it is truly supposed to be for the sake of worship, which he's done through worship team building and understanding the sounding or the sounds that come out and why it comes out for the sake of. This is a whole other subject we could go into at another time.
No, this is like a preview of that, because that's kind of a more isolated, I don't want to say dense, but it's definitely more of a focused, like, what does worship sound like versus the commercialized part of worship and that kind of thing.
Yes.
But I wanted to kind of lay some foundation of, like, hey, you were this young singer, you were invited into these things, you said no to these things for a reason, but then that path kind of went off into a different direction, not only in our life because we ended up getting married and having kids, but then that came around back again with people who were in the industry, but happened to be in Tennessee at the time, and helping kind of formulate and put all that together. So we'll come back to that. But it's actually why, some of the people, when they're watching your crossing shot here, they're going to see the trail behind you. And so real quick, let's explain that before we go on. So what's the significance of the trail image that is sitting behind you today?
So for me, again, you look through my rearview mirror and you get to see, like, things just happened to me in my life. Like, they happened. And I always say, the quotes are hugely a part of, like, I saw Holy Spirit's hand so much over the direction of my life, because when I look at music, most people look at themselves at 18 and 19, and I've never met a person in my years where people just go into it because it's fun, and it's just awesome to be able to play with other musicians and learn different styles. And, playing with music is just, it's such a passion. It's probably one of the biggest passions. But when I was a kid, you just often think, this is for me. And I remember looking back at my life and going, I want to make sure that what I do with this, I take care of my family, I take care of my friends. You always hear that. I'm going to pay off my mama's house. I'm going to buy my dad a car. I'm going to, whatever.
Retire my folks.
Retire my folks, yeah. And when I was a kid, that was the same thing for me. And I just felt like that was enough. And then the Lord knew that it wasn't something that I was actually going to honor. And you see doors shut and doors shut and doors shut and doors shut, because when wait!
Don't fly past that though. But what do you mean? You're saying like a passing comment, but explain what that means, because
everybody
it's
has
like a huge admission too.
It is, because you look at the things that you're invited to in life, and again, going back to the fact that I could have entered the music industry at a really young age and probably gone through the same avenues of destruction that a lot of youth in the music industry go through. You see the drugs, you see the loss of identity and just so much trauma through the youth. And I am so thankful for the fact that the Lord redirected me and gave me that understanding of where I was actually supposed to go, even if I didn't know my footing at the time. I look back and I go, oh, he knew I wasn't mature enough to handle this. And then, of course, I went into this place of, well, why am I getting these? I have these little doors open through recording opportunities for other artists and writing with certain people, but then that would fizzle out. And then when we get married and I moved to LA with you. He lived in LA at the time, and we met here in high school, and that's another story. But what happened in that is I felt like I was a failure for so long because I didn't actually have feet to any of the veins of bands or whatever, because when I was 21, I got into or 2021, I got into a band and worked in the clubs and had a blast, but it was just a short 9-10 month season that really fizzled out. And then I got into the workforce and, just stayed there. And it was just administrative work, and I loved it for the places that the Lord got to take me, but I just let it go. I didn't have any music to that. So this right here, fast forward to when we're married and the Lord put on my heart when I was 30. Literally, I walked downstairs in our first house and I had this vision, and the Lord said, gave me this vision, and it shocked the heck out of me, of me on this ginormous stage. And I was listening to Carrie Underwood's, at least I believe this was the one that came out around that time, I think. Carrie Underwood's How Great Thou Art, her version. And it was middle of the night, and I was so afraid of the dark because at that time there was a lot of crazy things going on. Not even going to touch that right now. But I was downstairs, and I was in the dark, and this Lord gave me this really, really big vision of me on a stage, and I was linked arm in arm with other worshipers, and there was a sound coming out of us. I could literally see the sound waves coming out of us, and the Lord said that I will hold arenas for you to release my sound. And I just thought, well, I don't understand how this is going to happen because I'm now a mother of 2 itty-bitties. Caitlin was probably 2 at the time.
Yeah.
And Jillian was
Jill just showed up. Yeah.
Yeah. So then I was 29, 30.
Yeah.
And so this road happened shortly after the kids they were really, really young. Actually, I think Claire might have been born at this time, but
yeah, we had when that
say,
picture was taken, yes. But the time you're talking about when you got that vision was when it was just Kate and Jill. But then fast forward to, I think this was from 2016, you said, and this was a trip you took to the Pacific Northwest, and the significance of this trail is?
So from that vision, fast forward to the kids were little, and I was asking the Lord, how am I supposed to do this? And he goes, you just write the songs. So I started writing songs when I was 30, and I had done that when I was a teenager, but let that go. And then 30 years old happens, and I felt like I was Jesus starting his mission to, he was released at 30 to set into whatever his ministry needed to become. And the Lord was saying, this is the perfect timing. You've now grown in your maturity, and your understanding of what I've given you is not for you, but it's for me. And I started writing music at that point. Fast forward to this year, I really, really knew the Lord was asking me to start building on that platform of worship, because I had completely submitted it to him, and it wasn't about what I was going to get out of it or from it. It was more what he wanted me to do with it. And so I was in the Pacific Northwest with some girlfriends, and I came upon this trail with them, and I knew in my spirit the Lord was saying, walk that, do that. That's what your life is going to look like. It looks crumbly. It looks unsafe. It looks crazy. In fact, each of the girls on the trip says, you're crazy. You're dumb. Don't do that. And in my spirit, I knew I was supposed to go. And then fast forward to even 2022. I believe it was 2022 when I went to Vegas. Same girls. And we were in the Valley of Fire. And there was this hike, and we can show that picture later, but there was this hike that I knew I was supposed to continue going to the top of the mountain. It was this incredible mountain, and it was super high, but I didn't see behind the mountain until I started taking each step up the mountain. And the girls were like, don't go, that's crazy. But as I walked and took each step, the Lord said, you're going to step in areas most won't go because they're too afraid to actually see what's around the bend. And I'm calling you to places that are higher. And because you have faith in me, I'll get you to the top. And I've never known what that was supposed to look like past the first visions. And then the Lord's given me similar visions of these arenas that are filled, but they're not filled for me. They're filled for him. And that's ever since my 30s, 30 years old. That's what that's been. So this is a road less traveled by most. He calls many, few will come. And that's what I've always known, is I'm just supposed to take the road less traveled. In fact, the fact that it's rocky, we're waymakers. Like, I've seen visions of us taking pickaxes and just driving forward, creating the roads that most won't take because fear, culture says otherwise, anxiety, whatever you want to call it. I've never really struggled with those things. So it was just such a drive and a fire in my spirit to say, okay, let's see what he does.
Yeah. Well, and the thing that for me, so on the other side of this conversation, the thing that stands out to me about this photo in particular is that it does look a little sketchy, and and it is not an even path, if you will, and has some parts that are more narrow than others, and it's got some danger. But also, you look at it and go, I'm not scared of that, and then also I'll still walk that. And no matter what other people might say, if that's the direction I'm called, I'll still go. And then here you are telling the story about that, because you could also see this picture and be like, oh, wow, it's amazing anyone returned from this place safely. And you return safely from it, right?
Well, I didn't end up taking it because at the time I wasn't going to rattle cages or, make anybody feel unsafe. But I knew, again, in my spirit, it was more of a prophetic vision than
That's what I'm saying. Your pursuit of that isn't deterred by what it looks like. Is what my point is. You may not have gone with them, but this was something you were willing to tackle because you were willing to tackle it.
And it was highly because at that stage, there's a level of wisdom and discernment that you have to come into as you are listening to whatever the Lord's calling you towards. Is there are things in life the Lord will say, hey, do this, whether it's financially or whether it's in regards to building like the things that we're trying to build now, which you guys don't know, but Andy and I are called to things that in the natural look impossible.
But look like this.
They do. They look like they're just drunk up there. That's dumb.
Sure.
Maybe
hey,
don't.
that looks like
normal.
there's work attached. Well, yeah, there is.
And not just work, but where a lot of people can look at something and go, there's no wisdom in that. However, when Holy Spirit, I'm in my time with him and he's saying, hey, I'm going to ask you to go there. The rest of the world is going to call you crazy. However, I still need you to trust me because on the other side of your obedience, I've already got your feet firmly placed where I'm going to go. You won't stumble. You won't fall. Trust me. And because of paths like this that he's given us many times over, I don't have that fear that's attached to the things that we're supposed to be doing, whether it's with music or I'm 47 years old, you're 46. In one of the biggest things that I've always seen for the sake of whatever the music industry has been, you've got to be a pup if you're entering this arena, and it's going to eat you up. But at the same time, I've also seen the Lord, his hand over our lives through wisdom and maturity to be able to actually maneuver through certain things that because of that growth in our understanding of things, we've actually known that despite our age, if the Lord's going to open a door, the Lord's going to open a door, and no man can shut whatever that is, and no man can open whatever he doesn't want opened. So stuff like this doesn't scare me because I know that no matter our age or our season, if he calls us to it, he's going to bring us through it.
Well, and I know that I've been off camera and out of like public life, been talking to people about this whole idea of making the second half of your life the best half of your life.
Yeah.
And that's where the whole offshoot of, the second half with Andy is coming from, which is talking to people about that and, why living out the second half of your life, it should be the best half of your life. And it's not because it should be, well, there's a winner and a loser. Like the first half sucks, the second half is great. But okay, we've come through several things that we could have drawn that line in our timeline of our life and gone, okay, this is a pivot point where the next half should look better or different or whatever. And for me, like that hit last year in 2024 when we were, walking through cancer, or not me, not even we, you, walking through cancer, but I realized, you know what? Okay, so if you're going to overcome that.
That is a we thing, though. It really was a we thing.
Okay, that's all right. Well, I don't know. I don't feel like it's a we thing. I feel like it's a you had cancer, not we had cancer. I did my husband part and friend part, and I still had stuff I did not do as well as I could have done. And that's probably a whole episode itself. But actually, it's probably a 3-part series. But my point is that in this whole, that's what changed for me was like, okay, the second half, whatever we do, however long that second half is going to be, has to look different, has to be different. Not just because we declare it is and say that it is, but I really want it to be. And I want it to be for you, and I want it to be for me, and for us in our marriage, and for our daughters, and whatever the future has in store for them too, with their spouses and their kids and grandkids and that kind of thing. So I'm looking forward to all that, and I'm looking at even what we're doing right now as a critical component of like forging ahead in that new direction.
Yeah, and I think that's funny because I think all my life, and I think a lot of people, I may be speaking out of turn for people, but I think a lot of people, we tend to look at our 40s and 50s and go, dang, man, we kind of missed it. And like, if you haven't reached it by then, you kind of missed it. And what I'm finding, the older we get,
I think that's changed too. Like economically, that's changed. It used to be like, hey, your 30s is when you gotta have it all, and then you enjoy it in your 40s, and your 50s you start winding down. But it's like that whole thing shifted to the right by a decade at least.
Yeah, and a lot of families that we have been blessed to be raised around, because we've gotten to see into their window and their testimonies. It's showing that I'm knocking things down.
You're fine.
We are, this is the critical kind of pivot point in our life where this is when we actually get to build. Because when I think of the first half of the life, and nowadays, who knows when that is, because, all sorts of things dictate where and when somebody's going to go. But for us, I've always kind of looked at, well, gosh, if we don't have it together by our 40s or 50s, we've failed. And what we're finding now is that this is actually where I look at the soul care aspect of life and what we've had to actually go through for the sense of healing past traumas, and what I brought into the marriage, what you brought into the marriage, what we built together in good or bad, and how we actually have been able to shake off all of the nonsense of our life together, and the traumas and the dramas that have prevented us from actually building the things we were supposed to build. It was very much by the grace of God that he brought us to this point where now we're in our late 40s. And I see the invitation where he's going, okay, now that you've dealt with all of the stupid, I'm going to let you guys actually start building the things that are for me, for my kingdom, for my goodness, for my fun, for my joy, for my peace. And it was all of the stuff that he's always wanted us to accomplish and always wanted us to build with him. And he always had available to us. He's sitting here going like this to us, and we're going, yeah, we're kind of not ready for that. We're too young, dumb, and stupid. And, one of my favorite sayings is the youth is wasted on the young. And because you don't have the maturity, you don't have the emotional stability, you don't have, not a lot of people, I don't know a lot of people who have it. I think now that we're in the stage that we're in, we do have that. And carrying forward into the things that are meant to be built, it takes the type of growth and healing process that we've had to go through in order to now go into this next pivot point of our life and say, okay, all of the things I've learned through my dumb, I can now apply the how not to's and the how to's where we can take this and build legacy for the sake of our kids, for the sake of our grandkids, and on, but also as invitation to people who look into our window and realize that many people are in our type of position at this stage in life. It's in this generation, I guess, where they're going, oh, me too. And I think that is my why to this. I don't know necessarily what your why is yet. You can share that. But my why is we've done the massive church involvement and the serving, and that's beautiful. And there's no knocking that. It's been a beautiful part of our raising. But to me, what I really believe in is how to church outside the walls and what that actually looks like for the sake of what our home is as church. And what we're being called to build in this season is to be the hands and feet of the Lord in our home, outside our home, in the church building, in the music arena, in all of the things we put in the film industry, you know, all of those things, I just see the Lord saying, now this is when I'm asking you to take it outside the walls. And now that you've allowed me to go through all of this healing process through your family, like one of the things you guys don't know, but he does. And recently I came to this understanding of like, why are we not where I've been shown? Because I'm 17 years out of when the Lord was like, hey, I'm going to ask you to do this. 17 years is a long time.
But like not in the Bible.
Not in the
Like
Bible.
that when you go back and you look at stuff and it's like something was
120 years.
proclaimed
Yeah,
and then 40 years later and here we are like, it's been 4 days and we're impatient.
I know. Noah took, 120 years to build the ark?
Yeah, basically. I mean.
Oh, thank you, in Jesus' name. Like, that would have driven me insane.
Yeah, even if it's 120 years by our measurement of years versus the.
Yeah. So I look at that and I go, okay, it's been 17 years since the Lord was like, this is what I'd like to, this is what I have for you.
Why doesn't our life look the way you showed me, right?
Yeah. But then, you know, also understanding that we can tend to throw things off with our own, but I want to see that over there. And God's like, that's going to take you off my path. And then he has to orchestrate all of the things and the people and everything that's going to bring us back around. But
that leads down an entire course of conversation regarding like what things does he allow to happen in your life that he allows happen, and which things do you cause that well, now that you did that, your hand brought this upon you, now you're gonna have to work through that, be raised up through that, or figure that out, because there's kind of both elements there. And so for people who aren't following along in that path of faith, there's that element where there's things that God will allow to happen in your life to help, let's say, burn off the dross so that the gold can raise up and the dross can be scraped off from you, that testing.
Purify me, oh God. And he goes, okay, that comes with a burning. The
right.
dross is going to have to come
But then there's dumb choices we make that because of our own free will that we've done cause trouble or setback or delay. And then we ought to maturely look at those things retrospectively and go, oh, that's where I took the fork in the road where I shouldn't have, and all that. And so, and it doesn't mean that it throws off God's ultimate timing for you, but you could also be delaying that or setting yourself back.
Yes.
Just by your own choices.
Yeah. And I think, you know, there, just as a side note to that, like when we can come to this way of how many times you have to go around the mountain, if you don't pay attention to the cycles in your life, you'll never be able to break them. Those things, like how many times have we walked around the mountain of, you know, whether it was poverty mindset, whether it was, I don't have the ability to do that, or thinking in the natural rather than the supernatural. How many times have we walked in doubt because we didn't think or see that we were able to actually do something on our own volition? Or like, what does that look like where God's saying, hey, I need you to trust me and go this way, and yeah, but I'm going to have to make sure that I'm making enough money over here in order to build that route. And he's going, no, I just asked you to go. But we keep walking the same cycles because we have this battle with faith and trust and hope in what the Lord's actually trying to fulfill through us. But we, in our own doubt process and our own trust factors, we keep going around the mountain and we never elevate because we don't actually put on faith or put on trust. So we stay in the lower elevations because it's easier for us. He says, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Or is that back where I always jack that one up? My burden is easy and my yoke. I'll have to look it up. Anyway, we try to keep our own and we keep going around these same cycles and never figure, oh, I probably should have broken that a long time ago. But because of that, the prophetic words he gives us back here, we overthink those things. He shows us the end point and says, here's where I'm going to get you, but then also knows the nonsense we're going to walk in the middle because we're learning through the process. And then we forget the fact that he doesn't care about the end point. He cares about the heart set. If I'm not letting him train me up and build me into the person that he's created me to be, none of that other stuff makes any difference to him. It's, who am I as a daughter of Christ? Who are you as a son of Christ? And am I going to allow that relationship to happen with him to become the person, not to do the things that the Lord is asking us to do? A lot of the times we just get caught up in the doing because God gave me this and it's my mission and it's my calling. And to that I say, still yourself. Let the Lord actually correct the things and shift the mountain and tell you where to take the new on-ramp. And then the becoming happens through the obedience. The becoming happens through the listening. And a lot of the times we can jack that up because we're just trying to do the doings.
Yeah.
And we miss the mark.
And for all of you keeping score at home, Matthew 11:28 through 30. So verse 30, for my yoke is easy
Thank
and my
you.
burden
I think I had
is
that
light.
right the first time.
You do. Well, you have it right all the time. I think just in this like setting, you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know.
In the context, I don't.
You know this. You know why I know you know this? Because you text it to me constantly as a reminder because I need reminded.
No, that's not why I texted to you.
No,
I
don't mean that in that. I don't mean that in the like clanging gong,
nagging
way,
wife.
nagging wife way.
No.
I'm talking about you encourage me in that way.
Yeah, that is one of my favorite reminders from the Lord, because how many times do
Because we forget it.
I know, but a lot of the times if I'm sending you something, it's me saying the Lord slapped me again today because I forgot or I
but it's also you encouraging. It's not just
It's
not just you don't die on the sword. It's not just
No.
you saying, "Hey, I was reminded of this and I'm sharing it with you." It's you like also encouraging and coaching and prompting me along too, because I need to hey, look, I have no hair, but I got a really thick skull, and that's like the thing.
said it.
No, I did say. Everyone here knows. They all know. It's very clear as day. But that's the thing that is the other part of that, where like you might be sending that as a reminder to yourself, and you're sharing that with me as your husband. But it's also very much like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to be hearing that today too. Every time you text me something like that. So.
And I think that's probably been our biggest battle. And I hope that this is something that can encourage other people in marriage period, whether you're just starting out or you're kind of in the middle, 7 to 12 years, where you're like, those are weird years.
I thought you were going to say in the middle, somewhere between like your first and 30th.
No, I mean, because there are weird.
Hey, that's like the whole thing.
There are weird seasons within marriage. Like I know
100%.
for our first 2 years, I hated you.
Man, it was
like,
no, you hated me more.
No, stop it. No, meaning like we had no idea what we were doing. We didn't go through premarital counseling.
Yeah.
We didn't know anything about like dealing with the soul care issues and what you're bringing into a marriage, or it was just nonsense.
Well, it was like these two completely different lives and schedules got like smashed into this one place, and then we didn't deal with that or like rebalance and calibrate it all.
Yeah.
And we were really young too.
Yeah.
Not that youth is an excuse, because there's certainly more wise people that are also young, or young people that are wise. But no, that was one heck of a season.
We were young in many ways. We were young in our faith. We were young in our understanding of what it was to actually put each other first. We were young in the fact that you were still a bachelor and I was coming in completely insecure and we didn't know how to actually merge the two worlds and actually see each other for what it was supposed to be. Now, that's taken us, honestly, many years to actually figure out how we want to approach that. But all of that to say, for me, this is part of the why of how we can be on display for people through all of our stupid and all of our learnings and all of the maturity that the Lord's had to bring us into and or shift us into veer.
Well, but a lot of this too, like, and even the sharing, kind of setting some base level stuff for this conversation today is, I know our own daughters, they know a lot of the things we're talking about right now, but they don't hear us talk about it in this context. Like they hear it maybe in little sound bites in between things or other moments of their life. But now that they're also pivoting and they're all getting older now, because we're in this, now it's our 22nd year of being married, and our oldest is 20 and our next is 18, and then we got 15, and like all that is changing. So these seasons we're saying, like, marriage has its own, it's like seasonal change and challenges. It's like, okay, so in one way, being just the two of you has got its own set of challenges, and then introducing your first child has its own set of challenges, and then having an extra child, or not an extra, but another child, and then another one has its challenges, and then going through those phases of like elementary school and what those years look like, or let's say toddler years, and then elementary school, and then now you have some of the junior high challenges, and then the high school stuff enters in, and it's like, oh my gosh, every little section of time has its unique set of challenges that
Right.
are specific to the things you're going through as parents at that time and your kids are going through that you're all shifting and molding to. It's not like I knew when we were first married and it was only us how I was going to be when our kids are in high school.
Yeah.
And then now we're like, okay, well, we're this way now in their life. Their season's now turning into young adulthood, where we found ourselves and found each other in young adulthood is now we're the parents of those kids that was us all the way over here in the timeline.
And in that too, I think it's really funny because so Andy and I met when I was 17. You were 16. We were in high school together, but we didn't date. We were just friends in a show choir. And what we didn't know each other we just thought, okay, well, we're in the same group and we're friends. And so when we reconnected in 2001, right?
Yeah.
In December, it was, oh my gosh, I know you, and you're so cool, and you're so cute, and you turned into a hot guy, and I looked at him. And
I had hair.
He had hair, but
I actually had hair.
I think you're better looking without it.
Well, thank you. You don't have there's not another choice, really.
No. So going back to the fact that we were teenagers when we met, and we just assumed we knew each other. We didn't know anything about each other, and we're raising girls in the same stage of when we met. I now look at that, and so the things that I met you again when I was 23.
Yeah.
I was 23, and right before I turned 24, and I'm looking at our daughters now. We have the oldest at 20, and I look at their self-identity and who I was at 18 and 20, even 15. Yikes. There were the things that I thought, and again, because at that time I wasn't in church, I didn't understand anything about my identity in the Lord. I thought very poorly of myself and had zero self-worth. And that comes from many, many different things that, I grew up with, I failed in and whatever, or were done to me, or I invited in. So I look at that and all of my growing as a woman, and I think, how do I shift that narrative and teach my daughters to understand, our daughters, to understand, but I say that as a woman, how do I raise them to understand that what they're bringing to the table for their future spouses, if they so choose to get married, we teach them to pray for the husbands that are going to fit them, suit them, and that they desire and they will have full life with and that love the Lord. But one of my biggest teachings for them is become the woman the man that you're praying for deserves. And that's not something I ever knew to pray. I went into it fully thinking that I was just fine. My mind was fine. My health was fine. My emotions were fine. I threw that into the mix with you and did not have any clue how to maneuver through that when we were being confronted with those dysfunctions, because
neither of us was raised with that model, like conceptually, and it's not an error on our parents. I just think it's something that wasn't talked about, because we didn't even learn it till we were how many years into marriage. We had heard it over at church one day. It was like, be the person that the person you're looking for is looking for.
Yeah.
And that's what you're saying is basically the same version of that. It's like, hey, be the young woman that the man you're hoping for is also looking for, so that he'll know that it's you and you'll know that it's him because you've been intentional about that.
Yeah.
And it's not that I think it was by malice or anything. It just wasn't on the forefront. No. It was like when I was being raised up, I was like, okay, you're an athlete. I was being recruited. I loved playing drums. I loved playing baseball. I chose the school that I wanted to go to. So like I had a lot of things that kind of were going in the direction, and then baseball fell off because I went to a place that didn't offer that to me. But I was like, I'd rather go to that place without baseball than go to their place that is offering it. But then that led me down a path of like continuing in music and having other career opportunities and all that. But I did not think about, I should be forming and shaping myself now because I thought, oh, well, I'm just me and someone's going to like that. But that like unrefined me is kind of the person, not kind of, the unrefined me is the person you found. And what you're saying in short is that the unrefined person that you were is the person I found.
Yeah. And then, I mean, we look at it's kind of like the candy display in the window. You look at the things that you want because it looks really good, and then I'm going to pick that and I'm going to eat that, and it's going to be so awesome, and I'm going to be fulfilled by that. But then you eat it, and you don't feel very good because you actually didn't choose wisely for your body. And I mean, whether that's your relational health or your personal individual health, to understand what it is to bring another person into your life. I look at the same way, God offers that on all different fronts of what we choose, whether it's food or exercise or people, relational involvement. I look at how you and I came into our relationship, and it was like, wow, you were completely this beautiful package to me. And I just thought, wow, he was so cute and he was so respectful and he was so kind when I knew him in high school, that he has to be even better now. And
oh man, he still laughs at junior high fart jokes. Dang it.
And he does. And now I do. But but it's the part of us that, like, I looked at that when we were young. That was half our life ago, And I look at that and I think, oh gosh, we had no understanding of what it actually is to take care of the baggage before we tied it to each other. And what is that like now in this stage to raise our daughters into that and before they take any of their nonsense into a marriage, so that it has the best chance to actually thrive once they get into that.
Yeah. And part of, I think, what I'm hoping for in this experience is that as we continue having these conversations, and also as we pick up other parts of our life and we just talk about that one component, I hope a couple things happen. Number one, I hope that this creates legacy for our girls to hear our voice and see us talking about these things even when we're not here. And that's kind of weird to say, because I don't want to just like forecast like, oh, well, this is going to live on even past we are, but it will. That's kind of that part. The other thing is that I found myself in times where I wanted to ask like my grandfather questions, and I can't, right? And I can still ask my dad or I can ask my mom, but I would be also curious, well, what would my grandfather say about this? Because he lived in a whole different time, and he was his own different engineering, crazy, like the way he like formulated in his mechanics and all this stuff. Like there's just stuff I would want to ask him that I know I could like level with him, or on that level ask. And I want them to be able to kind of see that in us as well. And then also I'm hoping that it helps create and craft some conversations around what they want moving forward too. Yeah. And what they're looking to have in their life, not in a selfish way, but just what they want that to look like. As we're sitting around talking about, okay, all these things have brought us here and we're going to unpack all those things. But then where we're going next and how we're doing that and why we're doing that is that they're in that story too. So this whole this whole weaving together of all these timelines and experiences and lives, they are all interwoven because we're a family. Yeah. But we're also like helping shape them, adding the new strand, whoever that gentleman is. Yeah. And then that's getting woven into the fabric of our family. And like, I don't know all of that stuff. Right. I don't know how I'm going to react or respond or handle certain things that we're going to be confronted with, no matter what they are, good or bad. Like, I was thinking about this the other day, and I didn't share this with you. And I was thinking about, like, there's certain things about being a father I'm super proud of. Mm-hmm. But then because we mature and we learn things along the way, I had this thought the other day. I'm like, you know what? It's no wonder that a lot of times we're better grandparents or we'll be better grandparents than we're parents. It's because you learn more along the way. Yeah. And it's just that. Like, I can't just fast forward stuff, when you're 60 you can't just grab that and go, hey, you're 25, know this. Yeah. Like, there's just some things that you just learn and that happen over time. And that probably sounds like an excuse to some people too. Like, oh, well, you're not trying hard enough, or you should have known better. It's like, okay, well, you can say that all day long until you're blue in the face in the rearview mirror of your life. Fine. What I'm saying is I had this thought the other day, like, I will probably be a better grandparent than I was a parent. Yeah. And I feel bad about that. Like, not a guilty kind of way, but like, man, shoot, I want to know the things that in 20 years, I want to know those things now. Yeah. So how can I like cast myself into the future of knowing some of those things to like work on that now with the girls at their age, so that, because when they do have kids and we're grandparents, I'm pretty sure we're going to be better grandparents than we were parents. Yeah.
I mean, and we do that to each other now. Like, there are things that we've had conversations on where, we notice how with certain relationships, we tend to give a little more care and intentionality and hold our patience more with. And we had this conversation yesterday of how we can be with each other and how we can be with our children can be a lot more lax and less careful because we know each other, we love each other, we're comfortable with each other. That's why our kids can ask us for anything under the sun without any shame and be like, hey, so you know what I really need you to spend on me today just because? And I'm sitting here going, did you look at the bank account? And they're going, yeah, that's cool, still in and out. And I'm going, okay, there's not a lot of care because they don't care. And it's not they don't care about us. They just know they're comfortable.
They want what they want. They want what they want.
But when we think about how we can be a little more intentional with our, I guess, presentation with other people, it tends to be like our best self or our best self of the version of us where we're like, yeah, we're awesome. And everybody,
No, everyone's got stuff.
No, they got stuff, and it's not even for the sake of making you think we're awesome. It's just that we don't want to spew our stupid on you.
Well, but it's the other part. It's like, no, we're not awesome. Like there's things that maybe we've done that are awesome, but like there's still stuff that as people we're working through, trying to deal with, confront, handle, and because of this whole second. Again, this is my opinion. This whole second half of thing. It's like I don't want to have the same hangups as a grandfather that I do as a father.
Yes.
Right. And I don't want our girls to then have to like think or maneuver their life around whatever shortcomings might have happened when they were younger and I was younger. Yeah. So it's like at some point I'm going to work through all those things, but also then be prepared for that moment where they might actually see a better person in me at 50 and 55 and 60 than they did at 35 and 40.
Right.
And that's just, it's a reality and it's upon me and I'm aware of it. And I'm trying to figure out like, okay, how can that be, now that I know, how can that be a course for moving forward so that best person can be there when I have no clue what they're going to show up or what's going to show up in their life that we're going to have to contend with and for.
Yes. And then also having that grace for not only ourselves, but teaching them to have grace for themselves and for us through the process, because again, we're human, we're fallible, we're gonna miss the mark from, many times, but to be able to teach our daughters, like the conversation we were having yesterday was the fact that who we are today for our girls is because of their stages, they're going to choose the version of you that you are really being intentional with or not intentional with. Now, the things they pulled from me happened through the majority of their young life because I stayed home with them and I was their main caregiver and I am the woman in their life. And as women, we learn to emulate our moms and we tend to choose our dads. But the importance of you has always been the play and the protector. Me, it's always been the nurturer and the nurse and the caregiver. And now that they're in their teenage
coach,
I'm not lessening those things, but I mean,
there's a long list.
You do a lot of things as a mom, but in the first season of life, your importance is teaching them that they're safe to play with you and wrestle, and you're going to be the one that's leading the charge when there's something that's scary. And so, as a young,
even if it's a little tiny spider that I need to get with a cup,
that's Dad's job. But
it's a daddy long leg.
It's
not going to hurt you.
Yeah, but when it really comes to this season of their life, they're praying through into who they're going to choose. And this is where, like, we had this conversation yesterday where it was how we need to humble ourselves and be able to correct our narrative, because we can get so used to functioning in a certain way. And this is our comfort. This is who I am. This is who I am. This is how I am. But being able to go, all right, God, where am I not in line with what I am inviting my daughters into, what they're going to choose for their future husband, and what they're going to become as a wife. And that's why for you and I as individuals and as a couple, I am hearing the Lord say it's time to pivot again, and it's time to humble again. It's time to have more grace. It's time to have more mercy, because you're going to need to alter your way for the sake of what the girls are learning to come alongside you as their dad. And like with you have Caitlin, that this is kind of, our oldest Caitlin is 20 and she works with you
She
all the
works
time.
here every day.
And so this season of life, she is watching everything you're doing. She's listening to everything you say, and she's going, I like this or I don't like this.
Yeah.
And because of that, she's starting to put different pieces together as to what she's willing to deal with and what she's not willing to deal with. So it's critical.
So one of the things I was
season for you and them.
Yes, and so one of the things I'm glad you brought it up this way, because the way I have been looking at this is all the things that they've brought up to this point at their age, 15, 18, and 20. That's their current set of behaviors they'll find, right? Or the current like attitudes and perspectives they'll find, because you'll. I think the saying I've kind of resorted to remember this is they're going to find what's familiar.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What's most familiar, good or bad. Now, the choice when you find what's familiar is I will attach to it or I will go as far away as possible from that. Right. Because it can be some really good things too. Like, oh, I found familiar. This guy is cuddly. Right. Oh, I'll find the familiar. Oh, he has a drinking problem. I'm going to go this way. Right. So there's these polar opposites going to happen too. But what I'm hoping happens in this chapter of life, because of their age, their awareness, and their maturity, is that that the newer things that we're moving into in our own like life stage can be in the mix, I'll say, of the buffet of their whole experiences. Right. Because if we can add more of that goodness in there, then proportionately there's going to be a shift change that's noticed, and then that can carry into some of these decisions like, oh, you know what, I like this newer shape of this version of mom and dad.
Yes.
Or this new version of what marriage looks like.
Yes.
Not this like there's been super tense times, like times when we didn't know how to put food on the table and we still had to do it, and times when we had to move, and fortunately not last week, but there's times when we had to move and we had to live with family, and times when we had to like burn a business down and then start another one, and then like there's been so many things that have been introduced into their life that I don't want only those things to be the subset of like the puzzle pieces that they try to shape their own picture to look like. You know what I'm saying?
Let's pause on that one too.
Because I want new pieces to enter the box that it can look different than just the ones they walked up into this point of life with.
Yes, but then also I think that conversation, I this is something that I've been talking to the girls lately about, Caitlin specifically, but where we as adults have seen the whole picture of what those different, buildings and burnings and whatever have happened, where in their younger state, they only see the trauma that happened between us at home when those big things fell.
They didn't know the circumstances and the conditions and all that. Yeah.
And because of that, there are things that they've mentioned in conversation that were like, well, there's a global look to what this actually was, where, oh my gosh, it was this way across the board. And I'd stop them and I'd say, actually, here's what the real story was. And I think when we were being raised, and again, by no fault of our parents, it just wasn't something we even thought to ask or knew was available to have those conversations in, or were mature enough to even understand that I wanted to know. And I asked my mom last night, actually, our parents are in town. I asked my mom last night, Mom, were we at Nana's house every weekend, and was it playtime? Because in my childhood memories, that was life. Like, that was it. That's what we did every single weekend, and I loved every bit of it, and that was so much fun. And for me, I put my focus there because of whatever other things I may have been blocking from traumas or whatever. But that was my fun. For the girls, our girls, they were talking about certain things that they recognized were in their childhood memories. This was how it was. This was what this problem was. This is what this season was. And for them, it was a long, globalized thing. And I go, actually, I was able to take that conversation and correct what their memory was based off of what it actually was.
So you're saying it was overweighted?
It was overweighted because...
What was it?
It was Oh man, now I'm on the spot.
Well, no, it's okay.
No,
there was this perception
it
that
was a perception
there was this
that-
kind of common denominator throughout this entire period, but you're saying it was more selective and it was not the
was
whole thing?
very
Like it wasn't a
selective.
blanket?
Yeah, I was talking to Jill. She's our middle. Because of this, whatever the situation was, it was like, that's just the way life was. And I go, no, that's what that thing was.
Oh, yeah.
It was just this situation.
That situation,
and
yeah.
it was such a core memory for her that it became a wider way of life, I guess, that she remembered, rather than this specific thing. And so I had to remind her, no, we actually did this, this, and this. This is where we played. This is what we did. This is how we built. This is where we invited you into. This is what we let you see versus what you actually saw. And so there was clarification that was allowed in this season of their life to help them now correct their narrative, because I think we can tend to choose things based off of what we thought something was or wasn't.
Yes.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, that and partly is there's things you're going to understand now older that you won't understand
And
then.
that's where
so
I
when
thought-
you're 7, you don't understand that like we had to close the company because of this and like
right.
there's a concept of that.
Yes, so that's where it was I didn't know certain things my parents were battling.
Sure,
had an
I didn't know
idea.
that. I look back at my childhood, I wouldn't have known when I was 8 years old that there was some other issue, and dad
Right.
had to do this and mom had to do that. Like I didn't know. Like I remember
Yeah.
my mom went to school at night. That's all I knew. Like, but I didn't know what that was for. I don't remember how many days a week it was. It was probably 1 day a week for like 1 year. But I remember, oh yeah, mom went to school. But she was going to night school. She was working during the day. Dad was working the day. Dad's at home at night. Me and Allison are with dad, and mom's at school. But that was more of like a sliver
window.
in the window, not like for a decade long.
Yeah. So having that opportunity to now, as older parents, go, oh gosh, and asking the girls the questions of, what do you remember about this? So that, because I know for me, there are certain memories that I have that might need to be modified, because
Interesting.
And I say that because
Yeah, I get it.
There are coping mechanisms that I put into play because of how I felt in those perceived moments versus what they actually were. And it shaped who I became as a woman. And I thought, okay, what do the girls actually remember versus what was? And how does that invite them into either breaking certain unhealthy coping mechanisms or mindsets, or this is actually who my mom was and or is, and who my dad is. And based off of what they perceive us to be versus what we actually are, or how hard that trial was, what they can learn from us as human beings, not necessarily their parents, can help them maneuver as they go into their own versions of
Yeah,
what
I think there's a really important point I want to make to people, and this is not a point at you or me, but because I already know this pre-exists for us. So be careful if you are attempting what we're talking about, that you are not manufacturing something that was not true, and you're manipulating that to like self-preserve, or I'm going to say cover your ass because you maybe did something stupid or said something dumb. Like don't try to play God in that moment and like rewire the thing to something it wasn't. So I'm saying we have to delicately understand, okay, what is it that they're sharing that they remember, and then add to that the context, or share
Helpfully,
part that they didn't understand or know, or they
Yes.
wouldn't have maturity to. And that is not a free pass to go and like remove a core memory or emotional historical moment and then
Just to
replace it with something
clarify
to
healthily,
to try to make it look
Yeah.
like it wasn't. So I'm not saying that at you. It's just
No,
I know
no.
that someone could maybe misinterpret what we're talking
Yeah, for
about.
sure.
And so I make sure it's abundantly clear. We're not talking about manufacturing and manipulating
No.
your kids' memories into something
No,
that they are
no.
not.
It was literally just a moment of being able to see, what do you remember? How can I clarify that with what actually was, because it was, and then also go, you might have felt a certain way in that, and that's cool. But just for your clarification, here's what that actually was, so that you can figure out how you want to feel about that. And how do I, because now in this season, I'm still a coach to them, but I'm now moving into the friendship zone of you're now young adults.
Friend zone.
You know, we're friend zone. But you're now young adults.
Shout out to all our Scrubs fans.
Yeah. Foliage store. Anyway, we're idiots. So if you're listening,
So you're going to the friend zone.
So yeah, but it's I'm still coach. We're still coach, but it's now we're heading into this friend zone of you're gonna have to start making these decisions for yourself. You're gonna have to start looking back. How do I function as a healthy human being? Am I a healthy human being? And if I'm not, then what are those things that are still my stumbling blocks? Because I think for me and the girls, with our relationship as mother and daughters, I want to make sure that I can help them clarify certain things that they maybe have been blocking just for the sake of protective measure, and then needed actual clarification for the sake of not having to move forward with that blocking.
That makes sense. Yeah, I see that.
You know, so that it's not a hindrance, it's not a bad habit, it's not something that keeps them from actually building healthy relationships with people outside of our family unit.
And I keep kind of thinking about or hearing this in a way of like balance, counterbalance. Like balance out the things that need to have the proper weight, unbalance the ones that have too much weight that shouldn't have, and then raise up the ones that are going to benefit and help them in their maybe choices or character that may have gone unnoticed or forgotten or suppressed that need to be remembered and put in a place, like in a position where this belongs here. Yeah. This is something you can build off of, and you didn't know it was important back then, or maybe you didn't notice it or see it, or you just didn't know it all. And this is actually a critical component that you can actually build on, kind of like that firm kind of foundation thing.
Which to me, again, if we're doing this and the why behind this specific direction that you and I are choosing to take, I look at what legacy actually is. And a lot of things I've seen in life is people will say, well, I built a business so my kid could have this, and that's my legacy. Or I wanted this property and I wanted to build it up so that I could leave it for my children and they can do whatever they want. That's my legacy. But to me, our legacy should, in my opinion, be to actually create an understanding of what healthy family is and a healthy relationship with the Lord, and having him at the center and why he's at the center, understanding what soul care is, and really teaching our children to then move forward with, how do I create healthy family? How do I create healthy friendships? How do I create healthy relationships in my workplace and whatever? To me, that's legacy.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, because it's more than two parts, but in the two parts that you're referencing, it's part one, let's leave them the tools. The money, the place, the business. Yes. The other part is let's leave them the playbook.
Right.
And that tools and playbook together kind of form this, like, I'll say, nicely knit together way of kind of adopting that way of life, but then also carrying it out in a very purposeful, meaningful fashion.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, you know, this could go on for hours just for the sake of the life experiences that we have had and are continuing to have together with each other and with the Lord. And I know what my walk has been and what your walk has been and what our invitation to our girls into that walk with the Lord. He is center, and that's what this is around. Like, I want to make sure that how we are moving forward and what we are putting forward is strictly designed around what he says and why, and inviting our children and anybody else who looks into our window. That's our why.
Yeah.
What did he say? Why did he say it? How am I supposed to be maneuvering in and with him so that what we're and the cool part about this is, you guys, nobody's perfect. We're going to jack up because we just do. Yeah. And we're human. And I mean, thank God for safe people in our life to be able to be idiots with. Like, we have great friends we were able to be idiots with last night that we've known. Shout out to Ferguson and her family. Like,
it's not even her name.
It is
so
her
funny.
name.
I know it's her name. That's so funny. Ferguson.
But it's people who you have had in your life that have allowed you to be your dumbest version and still love you.
No, but there's so much there, because there's depth to that relationship. There's length.
100%.
There's been so many things you've seen her through. She's seen you through.
And vice versa.
Like there's like you can't just. This is not a casual person that you're.
No. I mean, this is a 35-year relationship. Yeah. That we've done all the things, but it's that type of choice.
Yeah.
Relationally, that I want to encourage forward for anybody watching is do life with the people who will be reciprocal in healthy ways.
Yeah.
And in the play and in the trauma and the drama and in mountaintops and valleys, like those who will just encourage you through, listen to you through, who will allow that to happen on either side of the coin, you for them, them for you. And that's, to me, those are the type of people I want to do life with. And that's where I see God show up the most. And it doesn't, there's no narrative, but I love you and I want the best for you. And whatever the Lord's encouraging you towards, I'm behind you. Like those are the relationships that I see most important in my life and in our lives and whatever we're gearing our kids to be launched from. Because if we don't, to me, we're failing.
Well, yeah, there's, yes. And I know that word failing means there's scales to that. I don't think it's like an ultimate failure.
No, but
I understand what you're saying
my
of
version.
Right, that outcome versus what you would desire it to be. I get that.
Yeah, I'm not the type of person that looks at failure and goes, "Oh, I didn't do that right."
I'm not going to try again.
And so I try.
Fold the baton and go home.
I look at the big picture and go, if I'm not encouraging someone well or correcting that in a way that God's going, you need to right set your heart on that, or who's not humble enough to sit there and say, I messed that up. That relationship could have been different if I did that differently. And or that season of your life could have been different if you maybe didn't allow that person in because that person was toxic. And having proper boundaries and raising the kids up to understand what healthy is relationally. If you don't know how to do relationships and be humble enough to correct them along the way, then to me, that's a big miss.
Okay. So I know we have a lot of other topics that we're going to cover, a lot of other seasons of our life that we're going to go into like much more detail about. And there's some, I think, wonderful lessons that came from that as things never to try or do again, and things that, okay, now that we know, this is the way it goes. So we're going to go down that path later on another episode, but because there's some key things I think that are more maybe pivot points is the wrong word, but I'm gonna use pivot points right now where it's like, oh, this thing happened, like 2017, me getting hospitalized. That's like a big pivot point, right?
Maybe that's the next session.
2020 was shut down and the girls all going to remote learning. And then that shot off an entire course of independent learning for them and for us. And then 2024, when you have breast cancer, like that's another pivot point. There's the financial collapse of 2008 and 9. Like when we like literally lost everything the first time and had to pick up from the ashes from that point. I mean, I want to be able to go into all those things. But today I wanted to end by telling you something nice. Is that okay?
Yes, but I also want to put an accountability to, we started with a subject and I want to put an accountability in for both you and I.
Sure.
Because I think if we start on, Jen, why do you love music? And how is it that you're, this, that, or the other? And where did God take you? And my husband is a really good drummer. And when we first got together, I said, or when we first decided to get married, you're going to be my drummer someday. And you said, no, I'm not good enough. And or I don't drum in the style that you play.
Which is true.
Yet. It's not done yet. So there's an accountability there. We're going to go right back down to this. We are called to things as a family that I am bringing back round the beginning of this conversation to, because I know in this season, just as the Lord spoke when I was 30, now 17 years later, I have done an album and we did the whole Tennessee thing and that was awesome and it was fun.
We're going to talk about that whole thing too.
Yeah, cool.
There's a whole great story there.
Yeah, that's fun. It's beautiful, like such a faith journey. But here's the side of it that I want to introduce moving forward in the second half of our life, because we are such a musical family. Our five is crazy musical and everybody has their own strengths. And what I see the Lord pulling at my spirit now in is build again, music. And I've been for a couple of years, but the pieces haven't fully been coming together until what I believe is to be built now in this year. And so I want this on video because I need you to understand, and I need you to understand that what we're holding each other to for the sake of just being obedient. And not just for the sake of Dad said it, let's do it, but more for the sake of his best for us is bigger than what we can imagine. And I know that what you were built for, to give me as my husband, is not just the protector and the provider and the priest. It's for the fun. And how I build with music, I partnered with you on purpose, not just because you were a drummer, but that was a gift that was given to me, that you are a minstrel. What the Lord is going to build in this season with that, I know is not just about Jenn doing music. It's about our family.
So we need to end the episode so I can go home and practice.
Yeah. So end how you want to end.
And I'm honestly, no, I already know where I want to go to end because I am going to say something nice about you. But I appreciate the nice comments. I know where my deficiencies are in my playing, and that's where I have to do the work. It's the when you're doing the big band stuff and the jazz stuff, like it sounds so awesome, and you're such a good match in that like space. And I feel so clunky. I feel so clunky and like ill-equipped in my style and also in my practice. So that's like that's a challenge I can accept, is to get better at that. I love listening to jazz drummers and big band drummers. They're amazing.
Singer. That's what's funny.
I know. I'm talking about, for everyone who doesn't know, that is the part of me that I'm like, no, that's not me. Like, and even when you recorded in Tennessee, I was like, I'm not the guy. You guys have to find somebody who can do that because that's not built in me. Well, that's not innate to me. So
it's a
that's
different sound that's coming in this season. So
all right, cool.
You'll go along into that growth and that building process with me. So
well, then maybe the way I do play will match something you make. So I wanted to end by saying something nice to you. Because I do this a lot. So I'm here in this space a lot, and I'm in this chair talking to a lot of people very often. But I am so thankful and I'm so grateful that you came to do this today and that we're starting this. I think that there's a part of our life that we have just started to scratch the surface of and explore, that I think there's a lot more to you than people have allowed to be shared. And
he's trying to get me to cry, guys.
No, I'm not trying to get you to cry. I'm trying to. I know that there's a lot more that you can share from the depths of the places where you know someone can benefit from knowing what to do and know what not to do. And I'm really eager for all that to happen. I'm eager for you to write your book. I'm eager for you to have your next album out. I'm eager to hear the sound that comes from you in this new season of life, and I'm eager to see you as a grandmother. So. I love you very much, and I'm excited about this, not just because it's film. I just think that this is the beginning of whatever next is going to look like for us and all the things we've been planning for and praying for. And I'm grateful that you said yes to come in and do this today. So thank you. I think you're beautiful and wonderful, and I love you forever.
I love you too.
All right. Well, we love you guys too. If something we shared today, brought something up that you wanted to talk about or reach out to us, you can certainly reach us. You can put a comment below, or you can reach us through our contact information in the description box below. But we will be doing more episodes. I was going to say just like this, probably not exactly like this, but we're going to go into much more detail and deep dive about certain things in our life that we can share with you guys that will help you in your life. Also, while we kind of, I'll say, catalog all of this for legacy purposes of leaving a playbook for our kids, and for all of you who don't have parents that you reach or talk to, and you need to take this on for yourself, or take that nugget of wisdom, or oh shoot, they did this wrong, I make sure I avoid that.
Yeah.
Hey, take all of that and use these experiences and these stories that we're sharing to benefit you and create value in your life too.
Yeah. I think this for me needs to be something that's just a safe place to say, hey, we're imperfect people who have done things imperfectly and have been able, and thank you, Jesus, for the grace of God, because of the different failures we've been allowed to walk through, experience, and learn from. I think for me, this is just, it needs to be a safe place to be like, okay, this is how we pivot. This is how we heal. This is how we humble. This is how we have grace. And that's just what this is supposed to be.
Yeah. So thank you for joining me today, and thank you for all of you watching for joining us today. We will see you next time.